Welcome back, everyone. It's called Picking the Weeds and Removing Negative Influences that can hinder our growth. This is a new topic taught by Ashley Ray, and she joins us today to talk a little bit about getting rid of all of that negativity in our life. Okay, so I like this. You shared that. Picking the weeds.
Yes.
Why do we call it picking the weeds?
Okay, so I relate it to the weeds in our garden, right, or our flower beds, and how weeds can hinder the growth and development of our flowers and our plants. It's the same thing. Negative influences in our lives can hinder our own growth and development personally, professionally, and spiritually. And so in order to flourish in our lives, and in order for our plants to flourish, we need to first identify the weed, pick the weed, and then nurture the garden. So the first one is identifying the weeds. And I always think back to my grandma. When I was little, she would always have me pick the weeds out of her flower bed, right? That was one of my jobs. But I always remember her saying, no, that's not a weed, that's my flowers. So you have to know what the weeds are first. And that's kind of the same thing in our lives, understanding what the negative influences are in our lives, being able to identify them and decipher them from the good and the bad. So first identifying them, understanding, you know, some of those are our own personal thoughts and behaviors and attitudes and habits. Some of those are maybe our environment, the TV we watch, social media, the music we listen to, conversations, and then affiliations. Unfortunately, sometimes people in our lives can be negative influences, right? And it can be friends, it can be family, it can be coworkers, but first being able to identify what that is. And then second is picking the weeds. So just like a weed in our garden or our flower bed, some of them are going to be harder to get rid of than others. Some of them have maybe been there longer than others. Some of them are bigger. Some of those roots are a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
You know, some of them, when you try to remove them, they're going to prick you back, right?
This analogy is absolutely perfect. Exactly
true.
Everything that I was thinking,
yes.
right?
I mean, some of them you have to wear gloves and use tools to get rid of. And that's the same thing with those negative influences. Some of them are going to be a little bit more difficult to remove, or they're going to take a little bit longer. You're going to have to use different techniques to get rid of them. So picking the weeds is the second part. And then once we learn how to get rid of those, it's really nurturing the garden and understanding how not to let those weeds come back, right?
Yes.
Understanding what to give your plants to grow. And, you know, when I talk about the gloves or the tools to get rid of those weeds, that could be like working with a coach or a mentor or a spiritual advisor, maybe. Understanding how, you know, what tools to use. So, you know, maybe something simple. If you don't have a coach or a mentor or a spiritual advisor, things that you can do on your own are, you know, reading positive books or development articles, listening to uplifting music, maybe limiting time on social media, because sometimes that is a big one for some of us. Knowing who to affiliate with and associate with, and if you're a part of maybe a group where there's a conversation going on that's not quite positive, just not being a part of it, you know. There's just different things that you can do in your life, just like eliminating those weeds in our garden, that we can eliminate those negative influences in our own lives in order to help ourselves flourish and grow and develop.
Sometimes weeds come back.
They do. And that's why understanding, right, how to help them not come back, or when they do come back, how to put the little weed killer on them, right, so that they don't continue to grow in our lives. Because some of them, they overtake our garden. And that's kind of where I came up with the concept one day. I kind of went 3 weeks without picking my weeds. And that, you know, they overtook my garden, and you can't see the beautiful flowers that are underneath there. And in order to see those flowers and to allow them to grow and become their full potential, becoming our full potential, we have to sometimes get rid of all those negative things. And it takes time and it takes effort. It's not always a fun thing to do, but it's definitely something that we need to put attention to and be intentional about. And
people can work with you, and you can help coach them, because it can seem a little overwhelming, especially if we go back to the analogy and I look at this just weed-filled flower garden. How can you help people kind of get started?
Yeah, so people can reach out to me, of course, on my website at itsherbrandcoaching.com. And if they use the promo code WEEDS, they'll get a free session with me just to sit down and to start talking about those three things, right? Identifying what those negative influences are in their lives, understanding how to get rid of some of those things, and then really understanding how to not allow them to creep back into their lives.
I like that you mentioned it could be a small, for starting, because I like baby steps, you know, maybe not as much time on social media, or looking at what you're reading or listening to.
just little things that we don't think about, you know. But I mean, all of those are, you know, messages that we're hearing, and even the music. Sometimes it's a good upbeat tune, but it might have offensive lyrics, and that all creates negative energy in our lives. So,
well, thank you so much. This was a
you.
great analogy. I love it.
Great.
Ashley Ray, thanks for coming in on North Dakota Today. Stay with us. We'll be right back.